If we are ready, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining the Palm Springs International Airport Commission meeting, Wednesday, February 15th at 5:30 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order and like to see Commissioner Payne, if you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Thank you, Commissioner Page. Christina, has the agenda been posted?
Yes, the agenda has been posted.
Thank you, and we will now go for a roll call, please.
For our commissioners that are on Zoom, please unmute your mics at this time. Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Present.
Present. Padilla.
Present.
Burt is excused. Corcoran.
Present.
Sutta.
Present.
Feldman. Feldman. Hedrick.
Present.
Hughes. I see you're here, Hughes. Martin.
Yes, she's here.
Martin. Michaelis.
Present.
Miller will be joining us at a later time if he's not with us. No, he will be joining us probably in a couple of minutes. Payne,
Present.
Hyde,
Here.
Schmidt,
Here.
Lama,
Here.
Squirrel,
Here.
and Wiseman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a forum.
All right, thank you, Christina. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the acceptance of the agenda.
And moves. Second. All in favor? Aye. Yes,
All right.
approved.
Christina, do we have anyone from the public that would like to make comments this evening? And we are limited to 3 minutes on any subjects within the purview of the commission. Christina, I cannot hear you.
Okay, one second. We do not have anyone scheduled for this evening. We'll give it a moment to see if anyone in the conference room would like to speak at this time. We have no public speakers at this time.
Thank you, Christina. At this time, seeing no one in public that wants to speak, I'll close public comments. And I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the November 22nd regular meeting.
Got a second? All in favor? Any opposed? It passes.
All right, at this time, we have a new commissioner from the Cathedral City, and I would like to introduce Tony McAllis. Tony, you have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and share with us your bio, please.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I'm a retired hospital administrator. I've been in Cathedral City for about 6 years now. I was a hospital administrator for about 20 years at UCLA Medical Center. And I'm also the president of the board of the Montage at Mission Hills Homeowners Association. It's located over by Gerald Ford and Duval. I've had some experience with the airport, no airport particular background, but I had a bad experience in baggage claim maybe a year and a half ago, and I actually came before the commission just to convey my concerns. And actually things have improved since then, but ever since then, I've kept an eye on the commission. And when an opening came up for Cathedral City, I decided to apply for it, and I was appointed. So I've had an opportunity to meet with Harry and Jeremy and Christina, a couple of other people, and got a tour. And I look forward to the opportunity to contribute and learn over the next months as things move forward. So thanks for having me.
And thank you, Tony. And we are honored that you're joining our commission.
Thanks.
All right, at this time, item number 8, discussion and action items, 8A, working groups. So everyone,
Yeah, I'll be taking this one, Tara. So with the amount of requests that I get for additional agenda items and different things that come up, Harry and I reviewed the municipal code, which has 15 hours that lists the powers and duties of the airport commission. And from there, we put together a process, and I spoke with the chairs of the committee, with Chairman Dada, Vice Chairman Corcoran, about preparing procedures for that. When the committee provides a request, they will refer to the 15 items listed in the municipal code to see if the request falls within one of these 15 items. And if it does, then they will refer to who is listed on the item. Committee chair, Harry, and the chair and vice chair, and then they will submit their request to that person in the email that, or I'll send a separate email with this list with the link to the email. We will also provide it in the event that I'll send out. You can save that one. And so you would email, click on the link to email that person, submit your request. Receives it, will review it under what's listed for the municipal code, decide if that item qualifies, and then it will go to a committee for review, or if it should go to the commission. And they, chairman or chair, should be a committee, they can refer to staff, they need help deciding that. So then the person who received that request will notify the person who's requested the item, or whatever the situation is, they'll let them know what their findings were and how they're proceeding. Now, one of the reasons also why we did this is the agenda topic is working groups. And several commissioners have asked to have working groups, and what a working group is, and basically our committees are working groups. But we like to make them public so that we're transparent with the public. All of our committees are below the majority, so there's not an actual quorum, and that's what the working group would be also. So the commissioner wanting to create a working group would again refer to the municipal code, determine who they need to submit that request for the working group to, and that most likely would be a committee chair who would determine who will be on that working group, and then the length of time for that working group, so that it's not forever. And then the working group will meet, and then they will prepare reports for that chair, submit the reports to the chair, and then the chair will work with staff to see if any further action needs to be taken. Any
Christine,
questions?
I
Yes,
hate
sir.
to break that news. I don't know anybody else that is not at this airport, but I'm having very difficult time hearing, or your voice is coming with a
Agreed.
huge echo.
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay, maybe, are you
Are you muted on?
Probably not. 1 second, please,
Or does that mean the whole thing?
and I will leave the whole thing on mute. So is anyone on a laptop that's not muted? That could be causing an echo. Victoria, do you wanna reach out, maybe see if they can help?
Yeah, I'll try.
So am I completely not, can you not understand me at all?
It kind of comes and goes. It sounds a bit like you're like talking through a fan.
Are you trying to be able to see that all the- do I sound any better now?
It's a minor improvement, yeah.
Okay, maybe, okay. Okay, I guess go with my spiel again.
That's much better.
Okay, all right, so I think we might have found the problem, so, all right, so I'll start from the top here, so, um. So we provided a list of the 15 items in the municipal code for powers and duties of the commissioners. And to address the amount of requests that we get from commissioners for agenda items and other things. We've come up with this list with the committee chair, the chair, the vice chair, that when a commissioner has a request, to refer to this municipal code 15 item list. Find and then that person. Tony,
It's garbled. You're,
Maybe if you spoke from another position. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
better.
We'll put it.
Harry has the mic down there, maybe I'll just show them.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear Harry?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much clearer.
Okay, I'm gonna move Harry's mic over to a seat over here and I'll present from here. Better? Okay, all right, so for item 8A, we provided the municipal code that has the 15 items for powers and duties for the commission. And on this list, we provided who a commissioner should submit their request for, whether it be an agenda item or any other action that they're asking be taken by airport staff or the commission. So they would refer to this list, see if their request falls under any of the 15 items. They would click on the link to the person that should receive that request. Then that person would review the request to see if it does fall under that item. And then they would proceed by deciding if it needs to go to a committee or the commission, or if they need to discuss further with the airport staff. And then to address the request for working groups, that request most likely would go to a commissioner, or I'm sorry, to a committee chair. And that committee chair would determine who would be in that working group and how long that working group would be for. Because we don't want the working groups to go on for forever. So then the working group would prepare their reports and provide them to the committee chair. And then the committee chair would work with staff to determine what steps need to be taken from there. And does anyone have any questions?
Clarification. Christina, when you see more than one name on one of the 15 items, you would just assume the number of the first name listed is the.
No, you would email all three.
Okay, so everybody is.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Christina, can we move on to USO update?
Yes, sir.
So I will take the USO update. Just as background, in one of our previous commission meetings, it was proposed that we do some outreach with the USO. And this was actually surrounding the homelessness issue and potential theft from some of the troops, but that we do some outreach to the USO. See if there was anything that the commission or the airport could do to help facilitate their operation, whether it be seek grant funding or expanding their hours, provide donations, set them up with hotel rooms, et cetera, et cetera. So post meeting, airport staff met with the USO manager and the regional manager just to touch base on all things USO and make sure that they were okay. And that came up in discussion, and what we were informed was the USO really their interest is in making sure that the troops understand what resources are available to them. And it's ultimately the troops' decision on how they utilize those resources. So the information that we got from the USO is, while it's helpful to get donations and support, that ultimately it's the military members' decision on how to utilize that support. So we asked them if it would help and benefit them if we somehow found funding for expanded operations that they could operate 24/7 most of the year. And their response was honestly that they don't see that level of traffic where they think it's necessary to be open for that extended period of time. That comes with some logistics issues involving their volunteers, as well as just the upkeep of the facility. So we just let the USO folks know that the airport is available to assist. We're standing by if they need our assistance. We're happy to help in any way they can. They let us know that they'll reach out to us, you know, if they need that assistance from us. That all of them. Any questions?
Thanks for having that conversation.
Absolutely.
I would, as always, provided person who provides transportation between the base and BSP. I want to say that Chairman Dada and several other hotels have agreed to provide housing or overnight accommodations on space available. We and that made that known, we brought them the night before, we had a 5 o'clock flight or 5:30 flight in Europe. And a vast majority of them wanted to stay here for fear that they would miss the flight. But I really think Mr. Barrett for what he's done in the region. And also the chairman of his leadership, helping SOS become.
Ken, thank you for the update. Again, except for the first Christina's mic, we could hear it clearly. Your delivery really came in not good, but again, we will move on to the marketing update. Knowing that Todd Burke, the chair, is not present today, is there anyone that would like to give us an update?
Yeah, are you gonna be there?
No, I have no presentation. There was an update sent out earlier by Christina. I think we have a question. I'm happy to answer those, but I don't.
I saw a PowerPoint that had the schedule for the reveal of the proposed new logo. Can you just, review the schedule for everyone here?
Yeah, so next week on the. Okay, never mind. Oh. Where's mine? Okay. So next week on Wednesday morning, I want to say that's the second, I believe it is. Will be a marketing committee meeting to go over logo options. Once they select logo to come out of that, we're going to full commission for review and selection, and then in March, the commission meeting. And then either the immediate following city council in March, or be the first city council meeting in April, depending on if we would get on the agenda.
Any questions? Opt-out team, any questions?
So I can just also share, because I spoke to Todd earlier this week. The intention is that we, at the committee meeting, want to vote on a recommendation and a second choice to bring to the full commission meeting for the logo.
Oh, yes, yeah, we have our logo options that have been reviewed by Modernism Week, other a smaller stakeholder group, preservationists, and those involved in this True Modern, and we have, I believe, 4 we're bringing to them, to the market committee. They'll select 2, bring that to the commission, narrow it down, and then take 1 over to city council for final. That is the plan for it, so we'll see how it goes next week.
Good. Any other questions?
We're gonna attempt to mute everyone and then unmute and maybe that will help. So one moment.
One moment, please, stand by. Victoria, you're gonna do this. Do you want to do color commentary up here? So then we want to figure that out. I'll take the lead out of all this.
Everyone that wants to be unmuted at this time, you can unmute yourself. Am I sounding any clearer? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself. I've muted everyone. So everyone, you want to speak, you need to unmute yourself at this time. Okay. Am I any clearer also?
Yes, definitely much better.
Okay, all right, so hopefully we found the fix for it. Okay, thank you.
Did everybody understand about the marketing update? Okay. All right. Any questions?
Chairman, Dada,
Yeah.
I need to inform me that it's best for the commissioners that are Zoom to keep yourself muted unless you need to speak, because that's why we're probably picking up the echo. So please, yeah, please mute yourself unless you're speaking, and then please try to make sure you remute yourself, or else I will do it if I think you're unmuted, okay?
Please.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we move on to 8D and ad hoc design review committee. I believe Vice Chair Cochran, are you the chair for that?
I answer. I just want to take a moment to welcome our new city council person, Rhonda Hart. Welcome to our meeting, and it's thrilled to see you here joining us, and we love seeing the support. So welcome aboard, welcome to the airport. We're just acknowledge the time here. Well, so for those of you who are new, the ad hoc committee for design with the Concession project was created to support charities and the marketing group in the fine tuning of their proposals, the branding, their ideas that were brought forward in their proposals. And so today we had our second meeting with charities, who's doing all the food and beverage. We went through updated menus. A request that was made was to make menus more healthy. They came back very responsive to the requests and the menus. look good. We're gonna have some further refining of the menus moving forward, but it'll look much, much better. We talked about a variety of design issues and opportunities. And kind of work through a variety of different issues. Again, great ideas coming from the team. A lot of time was spent on the design of the new bar. So at the top of the Bono complex, the circle right by Gates Sport 10. They have, they're proposing to install a bar at that location. We looked at different designs, we talked about them both from an operational point of view as well as an aesthetic point of view. They're coming back with updated versions of that. The bar is presently expected, we'll see about 70 people. We think it'll be a very key point of focus for all the things we're making in concession. We have a process, we're going to reach out to the theater resorts and others, try to figure out if we can to nominate the name of the bar, something that reflects Palm Springs, our community here. There's a process for that. We also talked briefly about the construction schedule, the pros and cons of which of the food and beverage venues go into the first phase, which would go into the second phase. Our next step is to be in March, and they'll be coming back with an updated schedule. Between now and then, we'll be working with the airport staff on generating some proposed names for the bar. Some follow-up, some follow-up to the design issues and opportunity that we discussed earlier. It was a really, really productive session, and I think all of us left pretty pleased, and they were excited to bring back the next set of revisions, so to speak, to their strategies as well. Victoria is driving this team, driving this effort. Any further commentary to that?
Actually, you said it very well, Kevin. We're moving along. Jory's also assisting with, it's more of a team effort on the airport side. We have weekly meetings with the concessionaires, both the retail side and the charity, food and beverage side. Those meetings are very helpful. We have a lot of subscribers on them as well as them providing merchandise for us. So we're moving along very, very successfully, and hopefully, very soon, we'll see some construction start coming, and then we'll see some new opportunities here.
It's gonna look great. Now, our second meeting with the market group, which is the group that's doing all retail, that's scheduled for the 22nd. And we had a very, very detailed meeting with them with lots of requests and lots of ideas that were generated. And we're looking forward to having a similar session with them like we had in Paris today. And hopefully they'll come back with some of the tweaks that were suggested and some of the issues discussed. So at our next meeting, we'll give you an update on what happened with the market group. But it's moving along nicely, and as Victoria said, there's great collaboration both with the commissioners who are on the subgroup and the airport staff and Perry's. And like I said, we're looking forward to see what Marshall says on the meeting on the 22nd. So that's the update on the ad hoc committee. I will say that when the construction starts and our community begins to see some of these ideas take hold, they're going to be very impressed. It's so much better than what we have now. And if we can just fine tune some of these last minute things and some timing in terms of what gets built first, second, and third, I think it's going to be an exciting change here and much appreciated by the community. So happy to say it's going well. Any questions? Any questions? Mr. Feldman has his hand. Mr. Feldman, would you like to have a comment? David is on. Oh, that's your mind. Never mind. All right.
Yes,
Did you have a comment?
yeah, I thought it was a very good meeting, and this is with Parodies, and my particular interest is around the food offerings and ensuring that they're healthy and diverse, etc. And as I said in the meeting this morning, Parodies really listened intently and came back with, I think, what were some really nice alternatives. And at least on the breakfast side, which is what we were focused on, which is a large percentage of our traffic, but not all of it, of course. They really did a good job. And I think if they continue to make those improvements for the rest of the menus that they're developing, I think we'll be proud of our food offering at the airport.
John and Kevin, they're also on the ad hoc committee list. Tom?
Yes,
That's it for the ad hoc committee.
thank you. Kevin, you had a question?
All
No.
right.
Just raising my hand so people knew which Kevin they were referring to.
Got it. So Commissioner Cochran and all your team, thank you for a great job and the update. Budget and Finance Committee, and I thought I would let everybody know that Commissioner Feltman has stepped down being the chair of the Budget Committee, and I have appointed Commissioner Hendricks to be the chair of the Budget Committee. So Commissioner Hendrick, you might have anything you can update?
Thank you for the appointment. Mr. Feldman was the chair at our last meeting on Monday. Mr. Feldman, do you want to do the update?
Yeah, I can be brief and then you can take it, Ken. So I think this past Monday was really the culmination of a year's worth of work, of important work in evolving the financial reporting to reflect more year over year, quarter over quarter time periods, which makes it much easier to understand trends in terms of the financial reporting. This was a team effort with Victoria, Chris Mooney from the City Finance Department, and various members of the committee. And we appreciate all the work that was done. I think there's a few more tweaks here and there, but I think we're like 95% of the way there. And with that, I am happy to turn over the leadership of the committee to Ken, whose knowledge and expertise in finance is enormous, and I think we're in great hands. So Ken, it's all yours.
I want to reiterate all the work that the finance group did in order to get the presentations the way they are now. And I guess the most important thing is that the finances of the airports are strong, and we have the money to move forward with projects that we anticipate doing in the coming years, and that's a great thing.
Thank you.
Turn it to you.
No, but I completely agree. That was, one of the biggest things was the reporting, and, myself and then the finance team, put together, some reports that we were able to run on, a monthly basis or quarterly basis. So that can help us with, giving some more details to the budget and finance committee, so that if we have any questions about anything, we can review those reports and we can do a deeper dive into it if it's necessary. And then yes, our financials are doing very well for the mid-year. If you'd like, I can jump into that right now. We can move on to the financials on the mid-year.
Yes. Yes, you would do that.
Please.
So, just a very brief, overview. We went through that as well, the mid-year, fiscal year budget updates. And so I'm just gonna go over, because we have some new members on the commission. The airport has a total of 4 different funds. And can y'all hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So the airport has 4 different funds. The first fund is the customer facility charge fund, and that's related to our car rental. And that's a separate fee that the airport collects, well, the car rental collect, and they remit it to the airport. On March 1st, 2020, city council approved for the airport to increase our customer facility charge from $10 per transaction to $9 per day up to 5 days. We collect a total of $45 when when vehicles are being rented. So that is a specific fund that's gonna help us with a consolidated rental car facility project that we have planned for the future. So just going over the mid-year 2022, we had a surplus of $767,000. And in mid-year 2023, we have a surplus of $2.3 million. So you can see how that's really helping that our revenues are collected a lot higher this year. As far as our budget, our total overall percentage of budget achieved year to date is 55%. So we're definitely on track. Mind you, we are not even in the thick of it yet. So we're gearing up to February, March, April, May. We're still gonna start collecting a lot more as we see more of our passengers come in. There's currently no projects that are approved and funded by the customer facility charge account, so we don't have anything that's going to happen this year, this fiscal year. The passenger facility charge fund is a $4.50 fee that is assessed on passenger tickets. Then minus 11 cents to $4.39 that's actually remitted to the airport that is used for projects that the airport and city council ultimately approves. So for the passenger facility charge, last year, mid-year, we were at a deficit of 6.2. So the deficit is in a negative. It looks negative, and it is negative, but since we had a bond that we issued in 2019 for $22 million, for over $22 million, what we have to do is any of the fees that we collect for the passenger facility charges, we have to put those into a cash fiscal agent reserve. We have to make sure we have enough funds there for our bond and then for our principal and interest. So we're constantly moving that over to the capital fiscal agent. So our mid-year 2023, we have a deficit of $625,000, meaning we moved over about $2.3 million to that capital fiscal agent. For our budget, it says our percentage of budget achieved is a negative of 14%, meaning we're still collecting on our PFDs, and we have not actually had our debt service expenses hit yet. So we're going to see those happen sometime this period or the next period. For our general airport operations fund, that is for our airport operation and maintenance, and for all the revenue that we collect. For our aeronautical and non-aeronautical, and then it is also our expenses for all of our different expense accounts, such as airport administration, airport fees, the police, fire, our operations, our terminal building, our controls, and our weapons. So as you can see for Q2, so mid-year 2022. We had a surplus of 1.7 million, but for this year we have a surplus of 13 million. And that's primarily attributed to the CARES Act fund. We requested a reimbursement for the CARES Act for about 6 million, as well as the ARPA fund that was about $6 million. So I'm not sure if y'all remember, but last year, the year before, we ended up receiving funds from the federal government to help the airport with our operational expenses, and so those were just reimbursement back. So we got about 12 million in reimbursement. So our overall our mid-year total, we're doing really well for this time of the year, and we're going to continue to do well going into the future. Just talking to our, airport, on 416, but 416 is our airport's capital project fund, and it covers projects for the FAA capital projects that we see a reimbursement of, a 90/10. FAA covers 90% of us, and the airport is 10%. Overall, we're doing well for this time of the year. We are still expecting to seek reimbursement for projects that we're doing. And we even have a list of projects that we're working on now, the taxiway rehabilitation signs, the taxiway hotspot, wildlife hazard assessment, the airport common use, and park renovation, as well as, water purchases, like you. That concludes my mid-year budget review. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Really love the revenue expenses, so fantastic. Page 2. So this is great with that.
Thank you.
Is looks like it's on page 1, I'm on 107 and 207. Is 107 a summary of 207? How do they do that?
I believe one of them is, I believe you're talking about, you said 207?
Yeah, there's these two guys. So page 107 and I'm just trying to put them together.
Well, those have customer facility charge fund and then passenger facility charge fund. So those are two different funds.
Are they, so are the numbers from 107 on summarized on how we do it set?
No,
So it's that.
they're that.
Okay, that's
Because they're different. We have to like have separate policies.
understood. Thank you.
415 or.
Very, very close. 410, yeah. 405 is the first.
Any other question for Victoria? Thank you, Victoria. Seeing none, we move on to Harry. Can you give us an update for the staffing, please?
I can give an update, and I think Victoria's got to take a moment to load the slides here, but just for some context. Vice Chair Corcoran asked me to provide a briefing to the commission on our current staffing as well as our proposal for the next fiscal year. And there's a lot that goes into that, obviously. Our budget, for example, what we're dealing with in terms of operation. A lot of planning that goes into that. So I'm going to provide some context and then demonstrate for you the reasons why we're asking for certain positions, and then go through those positions and let you know what those are. So Victoria, if you could do this slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Can everybody online see the slide? That's the first question.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Donovan. All right, so when we're going through the budgeting process and looking at what positions to add, there are a number of considerations. Obviously, we've had greater than anticipated growth here. We just hit 3 million passengers for calendar year 2022. We should be around 2.5 million passengers, so we well exceeded what we were expecting for this year, calendar year at least. We historically have been very severely understaffed within this airport, and you'll see demonstrations of that later in this slide. But that was going into this, that kind of context we're dealing with. Also, the backdrop to this is we've got a number of changing regulations. So on the TSA side, there's a lot more interest in things like cybersecurity, physical security, et cetera. On the FAA side, there's a lot more interest in things like safety management systems and rolling out those programs. Need for data to inform decision-making. I know that this has come up a couple of times where we don't necessarily have sufficient data to make strategic decisions on staff. And we haven't had the talent to do that in-house. So that's been a consideration. A greater need for public safety, both on the police and fire side, we've been a little thin. But also looking at those, what I've been trying to balance is the need to grow the organization, but not go too extreme and overgrow the organization. So add so many people that we can't secure their jobs in the future should we go into some economic downturn. And then also with that, where we can create synergy between the aviation department and the rest of the city, where we can share resources to make things more efficient. So that would kind of, when we were looking at the program for next year, those were the factors we were looking at. But
I'm sorry, it just, the overgrowth, I don't think I understood the term. Organizational overgrowth?
yeah, so building up the organization too much. So adding so many people that if, for example, we lost air service,
Well, that's a concern. So you don't,
we don't want to do that, correct?
so that would entail perhaps outsourcing versus hiring.
Correct, correct. Okay. So as for our fiscal year 22 or 23-24 request, I've kind of provided what we had pre-pandemic, what we requested in the last fiscal year, and then what we're requesting in the future. So pre-pandemic, airport assigned FTEs, and those are those that report directly to me as the aviation director. We had 58 FTEs assigned pre-pandemic. That went up to 69 in our request last year. And I'm proposing to add an additional 15, which would bring us up to 84.5, 15 and a half, so 84.5. For PSP funded public safety positions, that includes the fire department, police bureau here on the airport. We were at 19 pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we were still at 19. We're requesting to add 3 fire captains on to the R side, so that would bring us up to 22. And then for PSP funded FTEs that report to other departments, those other departments being facilities, IT, human resources, engineering. We had 3 pre-pandemic, we were up to 4.5 as of the last fiscal year. And we're proposing to bring that up to 8, so an addition of 3.5 more FTEs. And that totals 22 FTEs for the fiscal year of 2023-2024.
How many people being paid right now? And this one is, you have 69 headcount today.
69, are actually on staff here
Yeah.
working? Right now, no. You'll see this in the next, I believe, the next slide, or 2 slides down. Okay, and then I put in here a slide for the following fiscal year. So what I would potentially request in the following fiscal year, 24-25, and that totals potentially up to 20 more FTEs to make us whole. And again, once we go down the slide, you'll see why I'm asking for that request.
So 42 plus or minus, if you get your wage for the next 20 months.
Correct. So these are the current airport vacancies right now. So of those 69, we're down 13 people right now. Those are the divisions where they're assigned to. So we're down 2 operations specialist positions. Those are actually, we made offers today, so those are being filled. We're down 2 maintenance worker positions. Those are also being filled currently, but not on site yet. 2 maintenance supervisor positions. So we typically would have 4. The 2 new ones we requested in the last fiscal year, and they have yet to be filled. Lead industrial technician was also a new FTE that's yet to be filled. The executive program administrator was Nadia's old position before she retired, so we need to backfill that position. That's down. The aviation planner position was a new FTE. We're actually recruiting for that one as we speak. Community and legislative affairs representative, that one has yet to be recruited. That was a new FTE. Marketing and communication specialist, which would report to Daniel, that has yet to be recruited as a new FTE. The SMS manager we haven't recruited yet. And then we have an airport civil engineer that reports to the city engineer, so he doesn't report to this department. But that position was vacated over a year and a half ago and has yet to be filled. So 13 FTEs of the 69, so we're not whole.
So just to clarify, so 60-90 minus 15, right?
Mhm.
And then these are all approved, everybody blesses them, it's just a matter of HR executing these.
Correct.
And do you have the space to house not only these people, but the current projection that you're asking, the additional 20?
No, that's why we broke them up.
It's confined.
Yeah, so
Look at that type of growth from where you're at now.
Yeah, so we do have some space available that we've identified for not only our current FTEs, but new FTEs. But a lot of this is, you know, flexible work conditions as well and working remotely, so.
And the second question is, I know that the city of Palm Springs handles through the HR, all the hiring and everything like that. Does that continue to be somewhat of a roadblock? Is there that also constraint because of other areas that need filling as well, other than the airport?
That's exactly right. So what happened was in the previous fiscal year, you know, the department had got together and decided that we were all understaffed. And we asked for, I think, somewhere near 100 positions. And so the airport has been sprinkled in with those other departments when recruiting those positions.
What's your opportunity to say, thanks HR, let me help you by outsourcing my hiring? They have their ability to oversee and perform all the right rules and regs, right? But more hands to get your hires filled faster.
They've been open to that with executive level positions. I'm not sure for frontline staff, they're so open to that. So
The model can help other departments, right?
that's right.
A model like that could help other departments do frontline staff as well,
Potentially.
right? I mean, is it worth, would they be open to having that conversation?
That I don't know. We've never asked them. We could bring it up.
I mean, you need to be desperate.
Commissioner Hendrick, did you have a question?
So the airport engineer, is that the person that's monitoring your construction projects on site?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any commissioners on Zoom, that have any questions, because we can't see you at the moment? No problem, thank you.
Another question. So, with the type of contracts we currently have with the airport, the airlines, how much of sway or authority do they have over requests to say, well, you know, this is gonna come someone from the profit that we get, or if they decline the request?
That's a really good question, actually. So, under the current AULA, the one that's in force until the end of this fiscal year, they had pretty significant control on that issue. Under the new AULA, there's we're going to present what we need and assign it to whichever division it is most appropriate. Airlines wouldn't necessarily have that much control for that.
Thank you.
Any other question for Harry?
Well, there's more slides.
Oh,
Do you
I'm sorry.
feel it would be helpful to do any kind of comparison with the airports of your size, growing at your speed? So you can say to the city council or HR, we're being very efficient, we're actually understaffing, but we think we can make it work. Yeah, is that another slide?
That's
You can pay a copy. Go ahead, Eric.
So what we have done is we looked at what our growth was, where we are now in comparison to other airports of similar sizes, similar types of operations. And this is where we are. So we've got 69 FTEs. We're at 3 million passengers. Fresno has 2 million passengers. They're assigned 133 FTEs. 8.6. Tulsa has 2.7 million passengers, 148 FTEs assigned. Long Beach, 3.2 million passengers, 99 FTEs assigned. El Paso, 3.6 million passengers, 222 FTEs. And Tucson, 3.4 million passengers, 242 FTEs. So as you can see, we're falling well short of what is out there in the industry.
Well, the request is.
It's a reasonable request. And then to add insult to injury, I put in a GA airport. So King County International Airport, which is in Seattle. They don't have any airlines, any passengers. They're just a cargo operation and a Boeing delivery field. They have 75 FTEs, so they have more than we have. So that's how dire our situation is here with personnel in the airport. Slide, please. So this is what we've requested for the next fiscal year. We're requesting one accountant. That person would report to Victoria and help with the money. One clerical assistant to offset some of our administrative burden. 2 maintenance coordinators. The idea behind those maintenance coordinators is right now we don't have a bridge between our maintenance supervisors and our workers in the field. So those guys would come in and help coordinate work, issue work orders, to make sure that we're working efficiently. 2 maintenance technician 1s. So we currently have a staff of 2 maintenance technicians 1. So we would plus up to 4. The idea being is that we would create an airfield crew and a terminal crew. So they'd have their own zone, be able to work more efficiently that way. 2 more operations specialists, an operations manager for landside and general aviation. So currently landside is contracted out to ABM and nobody's really monitoring that activity. Victoria kind of is when she has time, but she didn't have a lot of time these days. And general aviation is the same. A manager of innovation and strategy. The idea behind that is we as an airport are so far behind in our infrastructure needs and things like technology that this person would be the point person for all things technology, not only internally with the airport, but also working with the airline as a liaison to bring in those things. Deputy Director of Aviation Planning and Development. So that person would be responsible for supervising the aviation planner that we requested in this current budget, as well as we would try and get our engineer back from the city engineer, and they would supervise that position. 2.5 positions, they're part-time positions for sanitary services representatives, so to beef up our janitorial and custodial staff. And then 1 business intelligence and developer, and that individual will be responsible for working on things like KPIs and helping us to understand the data that we receive so that we can use it in strategic ways. In addition to that, the fire department has requested 3 ARF captains. Due to some common use implementation and some other systems we're implementing on the airport, we're requesting 2.5 additional FTEs for network technicians that would report to IT. And then we're requesting 1 human resources specialist who would be assigned to the airport to work all of those issues, personnel issues, recruitment issues, et cetera, so that we can speed up the process of getting personnel onto the airport staff. So that was the request for this coming fiscal year. We've also looked out to the next fiscal year.
I'm sorry, question on the previous slide. Why not hire the HR person tomorrow? And then expedite everything else that you're trying to do?
Also a very good question. So the request for the HR person, we requested that a couple of months ago. And there's a belief that the airport should not be the only department in the city to have its own HR person.
You're just the first. You're not. You're just incredibly.
I'm trying.
I mean, you're an enterprise department that, as you staff, you got safety, security, revenue, blah, 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 right? And it doesn't mean no one else can do this. It simply means that you'll be the first, and you are an enterprise organization.
We're still working on it. We'll see where it goes, but
Okay. And then just the text below, back to outsourcing versus something you'll do in-house with employees. Does that imply taking something that's currently outsourced and bringing it in?
that's exactly what that means. So we're, and I'm sorry, I forgot to add that part. We're estimating just with these positions, $2.6 million increase to the operating budget. However, we believe that about $1.2 million of that or so would be offset by getting rid of some of our current contracts.
Do you feel you'll do it better?
I'm confident we do it better.
Okay, so there's an offset, but you'll do it better, so there's kind of a premium.
Correct.
You believe you can.
Correct.
Kevin, you got your hand up?
I was just gonna ask clarification if that meant 1.4 or if it meant 2.6. So it sounds like 1.4.
Correct. You are correct. Victoria, next slide. So for the next fiscal year, to make us whole was an additional 20 FTEs. And that was sprinkled also across the divisions and customer experience. We believe we need another electrician, properties and contracting specialist, also reported to Victoria, environmental and sustainability specialists, a manager of operations performance, and to kind of dig into what that is a little bit. The hope is that we would have somebody on site who is able on a day-to-day basis to look at all facets of the airport, see where we have constraints and develop plans for those constraints. So if the checkpoint is going to be saturated, figure out a way to get around that saturation. If we're having problems with turnaround times with aircraft, that person's sole focus is to make sure that those aircrafts are turning, on time. Baggage handling delays, if for whatever reason we've got people waiting for 20 minutes or 30 minutes for baggage claim, that person's focused on making sure to fix that problem. That's the idea behind that position. Operations specialist 2 for aviation security. 10 landside and ground transportation representatives, and that encompasses a broad range of activities from public parking to ground transportation to landside terminal inspection, an emergency management specialist, and a wildlife biologist. Additionally, what we're waiting on, and this question of the police department last year, I asked it this year, I'm still waiting on an answer, is how many additional police officers we need at the airport. We believe that we can roll out a K-9 program, self-funded K-9 program here in the airport with 3 additional officers. But I'm waiting to hear from the police chief on that.
How many leaves do you have here now?
10, I believe, 10.
So permanently 10 assigned on a daily basis.
Correct.
And then the R3 captains, is that captain in the traditional civil service fire sense?
Yes.
Really captain?
Yes.
Is that everybody? Or is that just what?
It's a best practice for them. So what's happening now with ARF specifically is anytime there's an emergency in the rest of throughout the city, the supervision leaves the station while the airport ARF guys are remaining in station. So if an incident happens here, they have no supervision. They have nobody to report to. You've got a supervisor trying to manage 2 incidents. And so we're trying to fix that problem.
Do you have to do a play with any of the other cities where you're going to go to Palm Desert or any place else?
We do.
Is there a way to get them to subsidize some of the traditional, I call it the police and fire, positions?
It'd be probably a
Since you
hard
guys feel like-
yeah, so response time is an issue for those guys. And so,
I think it just,
and funding, I doubt it. But that's a question we can ask. And then I think I have one final slide, and that one's a little bit difficult to read, but essentially for our ask for this year, this is where we would end up. So everything in blue is what we currently have. Everything in orange is what we would be adding to our staff now. So that includes planning and the development department, which encompasses the civil engineer, the aviation planner, and the manager of strategy and innovation. Adding customer experience, which would report to Daniel. Landside operation, aviation security, and then SMX, which is the regulatory requirement. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Well, I asked to do this, so thank you for doing it. And I think we all appreciate just, the need that you and the team have for more support. I mean, everyone's proud of the numbers and the increase, the phenomenal growth that we've experienced here. But, and having worked on the concession project now, we have, more appreciation for what's around the corner and the support you're going to need to do this. So, as a commission, I hope we can be supportive and communicating to the city council the importance of the city manager, the city council, the importance of these positions, especially during continue to see the type of growth that we've experienced. So thank you for doing this, and I hope that we can help to advocate for this and move the powers that be at City Hall to be supportive of this and make this happen for you.
Absolutely.
Last question.
Yeah, I had a question. Maybe you explained earlier, just the 10 landside ops people in the 25 budget, just to loop us in if we don't understand what would be the role they're taking and I guess what's changing at the airport that brings up their need.
Sure, so part of it is what we currently do this now, but it's contracted out to a third party, it's contracted out to ABM. And right now, they're responsible for staffing the cashier's booth in the public parking lot. They're responsible for monitoring taxis and Uber and Lyft and make sure they're complying with the ordinance. They're responsible for working the curbside to make sure that traffic is moving, managing the parking lots to ensure they're clean, doing car counting, things like that. So we've had pretty robust internal discussion about if we should bring that activity in-house. Part of that is a customer service issue. We want to make sure that we're controlling the services that are out there and making sure that they're better than what has been provided. The other part of that, though, is we anticipate, particularly with things like the master plan happening, a consolidated rental car facilities and changes to public parking, that we're going to need to throw out that team and develop the manpower for that. So that's what's driving that request.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Commissioner Felton, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I would just like to comment or elaborate on the director's I think either it's an observation or a statement about the fact that other entities in the city don't have their own HR capability. Those kinds of arguments don't sit very well with me. I think those are kind of, we should be asking the council to make decisions based on the business or policy needs of various departments. We know that this airport is critical to the tourism economy, that having it be fully functional and growing, evolving, and being best in class is essential to the city. And I would just hope that we be assertive with the council at making that case and not being swayed or sort of deterred because like nobody else does it. That's probably in my years in business one of the worst kinds of excuses that people gave or tried to use to prevent things from being done that really needed to be accomplished. So I just want to urge us to be assertive on that particular need for this airport.
And thank you, David, for your comments. And I've just been notified that our newly elected Councilman Ron DeHart is with us in this meeting and wanted to thank you, Ron, for joining us, and hope you can unmute yourself and say a few words to the commission, and we are honored that you've joined us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Aftab, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit in today, and the intention is to continue to be a link between City Council and the Commission's work and continue attending the meetings as we go forward. So appreciate the works that's being done, and the work that our staff is doing at the airport has just been incredible. And to see the growth that's coming out of the airport is just really great to see. So looking for a lot of good opportunities and good growth in the future.
And I hope you saw it firsthand. Harry's request and how his hands have been tied and how short staffing we've had for the past several years and continue to, and the comparison between other airports, and knowing that our airport is the lifeblood, in my opinion, of our #1 industry. And having said that, and I know all of us take a lot of pride of our airport being the brand of our destination. So hope you will continue to join us, and hope you will relay the request and messages to your colleagues.
As best as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Question? What do you think that outsourcing, do you think is something you don't want to in-house for employees to do and you want to keep it as an That's really.
There are certain maintenance activities that are better outsourced, partially because we may not have the talent in-house to handle it. The other part of that is there's strength in having partnerships with other airports, to make sure that we're on the same page with those things. Things like, for example, maybe maintenance of certain equipment. Painting is one of those. So I don't know if you all know this, but our maintenance technicians, they're on the airfield painting every 5 weeks, overnight for four days, a week. And that's something that when we look at how to create efficiency, do those guys really need to change their schedule every 5 weeks to go paint overnight just to make sure that, we're good to go? We could probably do things better there. So a lot of that falls on the maintenance side. There are some IT things that, we could potentially outsource or look at different ways of doing things. But for the most part, I think part of our challenge with customer service is that we have outsourced so much that we can't control the service that's out there.
Do you have you looked at internships at all to help alleviate some things? Is that something that's an opportunity that you could leverage?
It is, and I've actually been working with human resources on that. We're trying to dial in what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Question.
Go ahead.
With say these contracted services, is it sort of more challenging to get them to be responsive to issues? Is there like I guess, is the city effectively in the middle of that relationship because of the nature of contracting out?
That is a really good question. So one of the challenges, at least on the airport side, I'm not sure if this applies to other departments in the city, but one of the challenges is that we're so unique that a lot of our services we have to get from San Diego or LA or, Northern California, sometimes another state. So if we're making a call, sometimes it's 3 or 4 days before somebody can show up to actually fix the problem. And that's one of the issues we're gonna get to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Harry, we will move on with you again. Projects and capital improvement programs.
Thank you for that. So I actually provided a written update for those.
Yes.
And I'm happy to answer any questions about anything that was in the written update.
Any questions for Harry regarding the capital projects that have been provided in your packet? Seeing none, Ari, you're off the hook on that, and we will now move on to if you have anything else as far as the executive director's report.
No, Chairman, that I don't believe there is.
Terrific. We move on to item number 10, commissioners' requests and reports.
Well, I'll use mine to go back to airport use and leaks. We talked about it last time, things were moving in a positive direction, just, I see it's written here, but just from the public announce. What are you ready to say today?
Well, we can add it to the agenda for next time, but what I can publicly announce is that, we do have one signature from one airline, so that enforces a new agreement for us.
Okay. So is the other one just Greg? I mean, are they gonna be there and it's just a matter of when, or is it still more if than when?
Yeah, we believe that the others will follow. You know, we've given them a deal that makes sense. So if they choose not to sign it, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity for loss for them, but
Can you say who signed?
I wouldn't be prepared to say that right now.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible to get an update where we are? I know that we discussed previously that the situation with the baggage is going to the city council and the city attorney to try to remediate that. Do we have an update?
Yeah, I thought I provided an update.
Oh, thank you.
It's,
Oh, there we go.
Commissioner Hall, you have a question?
Who did you call on?
Commissioner Butler, and then we'll go. to Commissioner
Okay,
Hall.
thank you. A little trouble hearing. I've been in several meetings related to the concessions where we've talked about coordination on IT issues because of the rather substantial needs that the concessionaires are going to have with their build out and all of that. And at that discussion, in some of those discussions, we talked about the fact that if our vendors are doing that kind of IT or bandwidth development, whatever the right terminology is, then of course the airport itself with its needs, particularly in the customer experience, customer service side of that, should be coordinated. Who's the person on point on staff for that? And at some point, I mean, I don't think it's urgent, but at some point, can we get a report on how that coordination is unfolding, particularly as it relates to the non-concession part of that endeavor?
Oh, and so, yeah, we can provide a report on that, and discuss those issues. Really, when it comes to IT coordination, it is going to be project specific. You know, whoever's working that project on the airport staff, ultimately hold the keys to the kingdom with, IT on how that's coordinated and what's brought in. Now, that said, we do have some challenges with that, right? So we don't have people on staff right now who are trained in IT. And sometimes we may or may not know what questions to ask, you know, when we're bringing in new projects. Part of the new staffing plan was to bring in that person responsible for innovation and strategy, who would have those technical expertise and would ask those questions and would understand how to operationalize that in an airport environment.
Yeah, I think that concession project is moving faster than that, however. So
I agree. So if you want to answer on who's working that specific issue, that would be Jeremy right now.
right, so
Yes,
okay.
it's on our.
Anyway, I
it's
made the
on our
final. We'll
list.
take more time now.
Commissioner Kevin Weissman, you had a question?
I did, yeah. So the recent news in Turkey got me thinking lately that I don't really have an idea of our airport's emergency preparedness stance. And I was, also curious how the airport would be, involved in even supporting, the response to the big one, so to speak. And so I was just hoping that, probably it should go through the operations committee maybe, but to just get a review of that for us to understand would probably be.
So Commissioner Wiseman, that would be a perfect opportunity for you to email the operations committee chair to suggest getting more information on that. And I'll be sending out that list with a link to the commissioner either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And further instructions on working groups.
Super.
Thank you. Having said that, number 11, we have nothing to report. Number 12,
Chairman Dodd? Chairman
Yes.
Dodd? Sorry,
Yes.
We're gonna go committee member changes. Did you want me to go over that for you?
please, because I'm having still between all of us a very difficult time, except for Harry's presentation. All other presentations were tough to understand. So my apologies. I don't know how other commissioners that are not at the airport feel about it.
Yes, it's a problem.
It has been a problem.
Okay, so an update on some committee changes, as Chairman Dodd had mentioned, Commissioner Feltman has, is resigned. He's actually resigned from the Budget and Finance Committee, and he's now on the Operations Committee. And then Commissioner Ken Hendrick is now the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee. Commissioner Gerald Adams and Tony Michaelis are now both on the Budget and Finance Committee. And Chairman Dada has resigned from the Noise Committee because the municipal code requires that the Cathedral City appointee, Commissioner Tony Michaelis, has to be on the Noise Committee. So those are the changes that have been made to the committee. I'll be sending out a revised committee member roster out to the commission also. Any questions?
Thank you, Christina. And again, in my opinion, I don't know how everybody else feels it, but this hybrid meeting really been very, very tough for me personally. So
Okay. I'll continue to work with IT.
yeah, either we perfect it or we make a decision, everybody goes to the airport for the meeting, or we continue on the Zoom that we've done for the past year and a half.
Yeah, we added one extra mic. We can try adding another one, and then if that doesn't work, we'll have to reconsider how we want to hold the
Yeah.
meetings.
Right now, you sound perfect. And if
Yeah,
you
because I'm
can,
right next to the added mic, yeah. Okay,
Does-
thank you.
does the rest of the commissioners that are on Zoom feel the same?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Having said that, Christina, do we have anything else before we move on to the future committee meetings?
Okay, no, we're good, thank you.
Good, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, and our next special meeting is scheduled for February 28th at 1 p.m. And is that again, Christina and Harry, going to be hybrid, or we're gonna do it via Zoom?
It's hybrid. Yeah, it will be hybrid, Chairman Dodd.
Okay, all right. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So.
Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Councilman Ron DeHart, and hope you will become our permanent liaison from the city.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.